Evening. My name is Justin Go. My daughter, Michelle Alyssa Go, was murdered last January in New York City. This is the first event that I've spoken at in person, so this is important to me and my family. Before I tell you my story, I want to thank Justin Shu and Stand with Asian Americans for inviting me to speak and for the important work that they do. I also want to convey my condolences to the friends and families of those killed 2 years ago in Atlanta and earlier this year in Half Moon Bay and in Monterey Park, and for others attending here or speaking tonight who have also lost loved ones. Tonight, we are gathered to show our commitment to fighting anti-Asian hatred, but to also remember those who were taken from us. On Saturday, January 15th of 2022, about 9:30 in the morning, my daughter Michelle was viciously shoved into the front of an oncoming subway train in the Times Square station. It is a day that my family and I will never forget. Indeed, we cannot forget. We were faced with the unimaginable, the death of our daughter, but also the onslaught of reporters, camera crews, and a media circus of questions. What does Michelle's death mean for the city of New York? What does Michelle's death mean for the safety of the New York City subway system? While the world was openly discussing her death, my family and I were at the center of it all, grappling with the trauma of a world without our beautiful, vibrant daughter. I hope you would indulge me for a moment so I can tell you a little bit about my Michelle. She was a precocious child who was much loved by others and filled with the love for all those around her. Michelle had a passion for life and, most importantly, respect for others, dignity, and self-respect. Above all, she held faith and hope in the goodness of others. She was then, and remains now, a wondrous child for us. Michelle worked hard to be successful. She successfully worked with company executives, but she also served the roots of her success with the less fortunate and the homeless. Knowing that Michelle was murdered by being shoved in front of an oncoming train is just unacceptable. This is not a fitting ending for a woman who shared the best of herself with others. You know, it's been sad and physically exhausting to constantly hear and see the never-ending strident voices spewing hatred and division over mainstream print and social media. Like many others, I too have been shocked that I have become desensitized to endless pictures of violence and murder in the daily news. Some days I feel numb, depressed from thinking about Michelle and what could have been, what should have been. I once thought that hatred and murder were maladies that happened to other people. Now I find that my family and I are those other people. Murder has strained our family history, and our family history is now part of the history of our entire community. Brutal death, murder, and attack are things that cannot make sense. Like many other Americans, we as Asians are not monolithic, although everyone seems to think that we all look alike. Many of us are poor or lower middle class and face failure and hardship like so many other people. Many of us have average aspirations and accomplishments, and many of us have done well. We are typical Americans wanting to get ahead through hard work. Why are we overlooked? Why are we increasingly singled out for violence and murder? Tonight, we come together to remember all those we have lost, but we also come together as a community to renew our commitment to fight hatred. We must take action to ensure that no other family loses another loved one to violence. We must try to balance the tensions between protecting the freedoms and civil rights that we all cherish and also upholding the legal and moral responsibilities we have as individual members of this community and indeed our civilized society. We need to have the true resolve and continued commitment so that we can honor the spirit of Michelle's life and the lives of those we have lost. I want the world to remember Michelle for who she was, for how she lived, and not just how she died. That is a memory that is always with me and my family, just the way that the memory of all our loved ones are always with us. One thing that unites us today is that we are grieving. We are grieving the loss of people whose stories are now gone, not just for themselves, but for all of their friends and families and for all of the acquaintances that they had around them. Their stories were torn from them and from us all. But another thing that unites us is this fight to have our voices heard and to ensure that our stories are told. It was a terrible day last January of 2022 when a person chose to take Michelle's life in such a hateful manner. Michelle, whose life was all love, did not deserve this ending. None of us deserve that type of ending. But in her name and in the names of those whose lives have been torn from us unfairly, I stand with you. And that is what matters. We stand here tall and we stand together to fight for a world where this does not happen any longer. Thank you.